2020, what a year it's been. Amina, a multi-award winning accountancy practice based in the heart of West Midlands. What happened in 2020?
COVID happened. I think Brexit happened first, but nothing got implemented, and then COVID happened, which is really unfortunate, to be honest.
So it's been a bit of an interesting year. We've had, apart from COVID, which is on at the top of everyone's conversation. We've had the whole Black Lives Matter. We've had the US elections. We've had the impeachment. We've got a new president now in the US, and all these things have an impact, have a bearing on the economy. What sort of trends have you seen within the business community?
Well, to be honest, because of all the announcements, government announcements, it's very difficult to try and I think businesses have really struggled with keeping up with different changes, policies, but I know they've tried, they're adapting, they need to adapt. And to be honest, over the last 12 months period, businesses I've seen have evolved. It's been difficult, but changes have been made, which has forced businesses to change naturally. And going forward, I think this is something that all businesses will have to adapt, keep out, just keep up with news, online news, legislation changes, keep communicating amongst themselves, keep communicating amongst businesses. So, to be honest, it's been a massive change. I've never seen anything like this in the past 22 years.
And I mean, we have Brexit looming, and we'll talk about Brexit shortly. But with Brexit, there'll be a lot more changes. Ninder. Now, Ninder's biography is incredibly long. So Ninder's a board member of the Black Country LEP. You sit on the West Midlands 5G board, which we spoke about previously with all the conspiracies about 5G. You're the board governor of the University of Wolverhampton. You're an elected member of the West Midlands CBI. You're a non-executive director at Accord Housing, a trustee at the Albion Foundation, a trustee at the Victoria Academy, previous president of the Black Country Chamber, a board member of the West Midlands Growth Company, West Midlands India Partnership, and the West Midlands Combined Authority. You're also the chair of the Wolverhampton Town Fund. You were a runner-up in the Sunday Times 2017 for Non-Exec of the Year, and you are also an appointed Deputy Lieutenant of the West Midlands. So a man in the complete know-how of the business and the financial affairs of the region. Can you sum up 2020?
Yeah, well, listen, I think all of us were together at the Signature Awards in February, and there was mumblings of something happening in the Far East, and it was just a mumble at the time. And then I think we had the rapid shock in March of a lockdown. Now, the government did what it could. We could sit here all day, argue what mistakes they made, what things they did right. But what we saw was an acceleration of digital. So we saw, because people who are face-to-face type of products, they had to adapt, as Amina said. So we had winners and we had losers. Winners were those who were able to adapt to a digital world. Losers were people who ran events, like me, with the airlines who need people to sit in there. The winners were anything digital, like Uber Treats and anybody who could adapt to the digital. We had the deepest recession in 300 years. We have a budget deficit of 400 billion, which, by the way, is last 6 years combined. 60% of global passengers, that was the best, that's probably the most easiest way to for the COVID to spread. So that went down by 60%. And world GDP, that's our ability to trade globally, went down by 4%. 12.5 million jobs were covered by furlough. 12.5 million jobs. And by the way, Yeah, and by the way, because everybody sat at home, we've saved more money.
Well, I mean,
So
you've got
the
to say
rate of
that
saving.
you've got to accept the fact that despite what people say about the UK government, not many countries were able to sustain their people the way the British government did. Would you not agree?
Look, it was, it was a situation where the government had to react quickly. There were obviously
Yeah.
going to be loopholes. So certain people who ran limited companies, they were left out of the sort of the support structure. And of course, as they were going along, as the circumstances were changing, because let's not forget, we've never had a pandemic. We've had epidemics, but we've never had a
Yes.
pandemic. And
Yes.
for this thing to be resolved, it has to be resolved globally. So everybody has to have the vaccine. Everybody needs to be treated, because if everybody's treated, you won't have that transmission. Listen, it was a world the government hadn't seen. It was a world accountants hadn't seen. It was a world that training companies hadn't seen. It was a world that events companies hadn't seen. It was a totally new environment, and we all had to adapt. And I said there was winners and there was losers. So I was reading yesterday the story about Amazon, Steve Jobs, Microsoft,
Yes.
Apple. All these organizations did very well because we all moved into a digital world, and we all sat at home and ordered our goods from home, and
That's it.
we weren't able
And
to
that's
meet
something that,
each other. And
that's, that I want to touch on with Saf. So, Saf, thank you for joining us this morning. We had you on. I think you were the very first guest when this show started, and we're delighted to have you back. So, somebody who's a mentor, and I know that you to find the positives in things. 2020. What positives can we draw? Now, Marcelo Glacier from the CNN Opinion said, 2020 shall be a year to be remembered, not just because many will die, but because the COVID-19 pandemic is offering us a chance to reinvent ourselves. And I know that that's something that you're a great fan of, and it's something that you're very passionate about. So what positives can we take from 2020?
Firstly, I will echo exactly what my colleague said. It is a year that has been, and again, you said it right at the beginning. It's a year that you called it crazy, and we hope the year forward will be possibly, hopefully, less crazy. But it has been a monumental year, a year that we won't forget, and a year that we'll probably go back and talk about in the future. We'll be talking to our colleagues. We'll definitely be talking to our family members and so forth. So it'll be a monumental, unforgettable year in many, many ways. I think for me, from a personal perspective, it's both the best out of people, and it's also at the same time probably both the worst out of people as well in many examples. Best in terms of the community, best in terms of how we've been able to support each other, and best in terms of actually being able to see things in a slightly different way. Our perspectives have changed, and worst as well in terms of some of the stuff that we've seen in terms of price hikes on a level, some of the opportunity that we've seen people trying to take advantage of, and also behaviors in shopping. It's a year where we'll see how how we've reacted to potential shortages or perceived shortages. It's a year that we can't, hopefully people will realize that we can't take things for granted. We can't take our lives for granted. We can't take our health for granted. We can't take our loved ones for granted. We cannot take anything for granted. And we've got to change
Yes.
our perspective and how we do things. And I'm going to say that, right at the beginning, it's about adaptability. And it's also about hopefully perspective and how we perceive things and how we look at things. And if this year hasn't changed you in some way, then I don't know what will change you. But
Well,
we all must be able to look at
there's a lot of talk about change, and before lockdown, before pandemic, before COVID, businesses were kind of pushing towards working from home. With the whole pandemic, I think this has been forced upon people. This is a prime example of what we're doing right now, doing this interview remotely. Some of us had problems getting, logging on this morning, but we've had to learn and we've had to adopt. People who are not techies have suddenly become techies. People who weren't on social media are now, well, businesses that were on social media have now learned how to use social media. And we are living in a remote world as such, because we've learned that we don't need to jump on a train to go to London for a meeting. We can actually have the meeting remotely from the comfort of your own home.
It's a year which is digital by default. Ninder said it really well in terms of people who are digital literate, who can move over. They've adapted, they've changed. There's certain people who can't, unfortunately, can't do that very quickly or quickly enough, and they're the losers. So there's always going to be winners. There's always going to be losers. There are some people that will be able to adapt, but it's going to take them a little bit longer. And yes, it's been a bumper year for many in terms of particularly the businesses that Ninder mentioned, some of the giants in the world. But it's been a bumpy year for a lot of others. And Amina said it, in terms of information and in terms of ambiguity and actually trying to keep up. It's not a year where it's been all easy and transparent. You talk about right at the beginning, in terms of the US and so forth, and fake news, and we were talking about that a couple of years ago. But it's harder to get information or right information, and where your go-tos are. So it's one of those things where you have